Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listens in the replay. This is the vault. You knew this one was coming. Episode 6, Trustee Training Spiritual Sundays with Dr. Bey. Definitely want to do this episode for so many that have tuned into the episodes with Dr. Bey, appreciate these episodes with Dr. Bey, and want to get more information from Trust Christian and the Vault and Dr. Bey. So feel free to reach out. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. We always appreciate everybody that has reached out and, you know, started getting enrolled and moving forward with Dr. Bey. And that's something that, a lot of people, they hear and they wonder what is the next step. The next step is reaching out. It's literally moving forward, emailing Christian at trustchristian.com. Dr. Bey is private, but we definitely want to make it a point to share wisdom and knowledge and understanding, quote unquote, in a different manner. So just know you can reach out Christian at trustchristian.com. Definitely hit the like, hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed, or hit the all notifications so you can know when we do the pop up episodes, and specifically the ones with Dr. Bey and Trustee Training. So, and Spiritual Sundays, this is definitely one we're going to tie to. It's ultimately, this is something that may contort people's feelings because this is information that, sure, if you went through public school and they taught you about the law of sowing and reaping, feel free in the chat or in the replay to type a 1. But if you didn't learn the law of sowing and reaping, if you could please type into the chat a 0. And so today we're going to talk about that because this is where some people say, oh, I want to issue my own instruments. Dr. Bey, people want to issue their own financial instruments from their own family estate. This is what they come to the vault and they talk about. So we want to talk about the law of sowing and reaping in the commercial aspect. We have Dr. Bey here, who better that's run a multi-state operation, has been around the Rockefellers, has been around many of the other sorts. When we say been around, literally friends with them. So could you actually, Dr. Bey, how you doing today, Dr. Bey? How you feeling?
Great and getting greater, just like you.
I appreciate that. We're always getting great. So when it comes to this topic of sowing and reaping, this is the spiritual topic of the day, sowing and reaping, because people want to know, well, how can I create out of thin air, Dr. Bey? How can I create something that is not in the physical first? And aren't I supposed to create in the physical first? I've been taught to focus on my physical senses first. So talk to us about that law of sowing and reaping from the invisible, or just your perspective and thoughts on the law of sowing and reaping, if you could, today, from a spiritual and commercial perspective.
Okay, uh, just a little difference in what you said. Sowing and reaping is one of the 11 creative spirits, not one of the 22 master spiritual laws. In other words, sowing and reaping is an aspect of creativity. Um, you got to realize that sowing and reaping is something that we think of agriculturally. In other words, if you plant watermelon seed, you reap a watermelon. And I think of it as, now you don't just only reap a watermelon. You sow one watermelon seed, you reap maybe 3 or 4 watermelons, and each one of them may have 25 to 50 seeds in it. So sowing and reaping is understanding that whatever you're giving your energy to, and you are going to reap the benefits of, be it righteous or unrighteous, be it advantageous or detrimental. So, you know, we realize that people say that, you know, If you knew better, you'd do better. And of course, I take that to the 13th law, says stop lying. Because most people are sowing from their knowing better. It's not what they're applying. Most people know that cigarette smoking is not good for them, but that don't mean they're going to do better. They may know that drinking or taking drugs are not good for them, but that don't mean they're going to do better. So, or cursing or all the other things that people do that they know better than, but that don't mean they're going to do better than. So, whatever they're sowing is what they're going to reap. In other words, if they're sowing righteous thoughts, they'll receive righteous results. It's just like I tell people about consumption and eating. The body is physically designed to renew itself cell by cell, millions and billions of cells in a 7 to 10 year period. But it can only do so if you sow the right nutrition. Because other than that, you're going to reap the wrong thing. In other words, you got to sow what the body needs and not what it don't need. What enhances the body instead of what destroys the body. So it is true with your thoughts and your actions.
It's interesting that you bring this up as you were speaking. I was listening and thinking of when you sow, it's more so even mental. So could you talk about sowing mentally? Of course, we talked about it, but could you highlight the importance of sowing? And do you think sowing is equated to programming?
Yes,
Okay.
it is what you're putting out to get back a return. So it is definitely tied to your thoughts. What thoughts are you putting out? That you can do this or that you can't do this? You will do this or that you won't do this? Whatever thoughts you put out has a subsequent action. If you understand that most things we do, we don't know we do, and we do them habitually. And we're sowing our feelings and our thoughts habitually, and we're reaping habitually either things we want or things we don't want. I don't know if that's what you wanted me to deal with.
No, that's definitely important. I think that's definitely important to share for sure. Was It's definitely important. Sowing is definitely important in specifically your thoughts and your feelings. So when someone says, okay, you're saying that we got to put out thoughts, but sure, we could put out thoughts. We don't know how to control our thoughts. How do we start to control our thoughts? What are you talking about? I thought I wasn't in control of my thoughts. I had all of these thoughts go through my head all throughout the day. Are all of them my thoughts? I don't think so, because some of them are some wild thoughts. So, once again, how do I gain control of my thoughts, Dr. B?
So that's part of the programming that we do. We show you how to program yourself, and certainly that's a part of the thing that we do training in. So if they get in touch with you, we can definitely show them how to do and what to do to program their thoughts. Because it, to me, it goes back to your reason for being and subsequent action. Whether you're doing what your reason for being is or not doing it, and how you and what system you're using, because everything works in a system. So whether it's your thoughts or your body or your car or whatever, it's not one thing doing something, it's a whole bunch of things. In other words, the system of your body got your heart, your lungs, your liver, your kidney, your spleen. Your system of your car may have the keys, the engineer, the engine, the transmission, the batteries. So everything is in a system. And each part of the system works a certain way, cause another part of it to flow and grow. And so that is certainly something that is high on what we're about.
I was thinking about Dr. Bay, how you learned the information you learned, and was, especially the system that it was taught originally, was it taught through audio presentation and you had to be physically in person? Because when you think about the way that you're disseminating it, it's is it do you feel that it's the same exact way even though it's taught through maybe a telecommunication? Do you think, because you were trained to do physical activities as well in conjunction with the information, so do you feel that it doesn't matter how the information is conveyed as long as it holds true to the principles and values of the true rites of passage thought process? Or is it like, how is it different but at the same time equal to what you learned and how you learned it?
Well, it's different greatly because the early years of your life, like the first 9 years of your life, as well as the internal aspects of your life, that, in other words, your father, whatever he felt about having a child, is affecting you today, whether you know it or not. Mainly, your mother whilst carrying you, because not only what she felt or thought, y'all were connected. And so if she was going through some emotional trauma, anxiety, tension, worry, and all that type of stuff, all of that was going into you. And and one of the things that we need to learn to do is remove blockages that were put in our lives that is stopping us from doing what we really need to do in a righteous way each and every day.
That is very important, is being able to get rid of these emotional blockages. So, okay, some people definitely feel possibly, hey, I'm at an emotional hard place, meaning that they're not emotionally fulfilled. Okay? And do you think that requires training to go to the next level, Dr. Bey, or if they just keep doing the same thing, something will change at one point?
So something's going to change ongoingly because of the universal flow, spirits, and energies. But is it going to change for the better or the worse? Is the question. Because that's what the system we're talking about is, how to change, how to get what you want in life, not what you don't want.
Right,
Because everything is going to change.
right.
You deal with the 22nd law. The law is the law of a greater good, but people use it to get a greater worse.
Well, all right, we're here, Dr. Bey. We're here. So this has been always a great in-depth conversation. It always gets deeper and deeper, and we do our best to give our audience something to follow and hold on to, and take a bite out of, as they say. Okay, the reason why I asked the last question I asked Dr. Bay is because the information, is it meant to be conveyed through visual, through audio, or is it something you have to do physically in person? Because those things matter when you're looking to give information to people. So
Uh,
when we talk about programming and training, you learned it a certain way. Do you feel it's important to duplicate it the same way you learned it, or do you feel that the way that you want to convey it is equal to the way you learned it?
well, different people, different things, different times, and different areas. So um, I know with my father training me in it, um, he mainly trained me to think. He would give me a subject matter, be it a law or principle or insight, and there are 92 of them, and ask me about the next time we met to come up with what I felt or thought or saw in it, in my world that dealt with. And so um, it's a major challenge to get people to think, because people have been taught to recall, to go to these libraries and find out what lies they buried in them and recall what they said. So it it is it really varies, and all of this. things. It just like I said, it's a system. It's not one thing. It's a whole bunch of things. Every one of them plays a role.
Right. We actually talked to a nurse earlier already today, and they were talking about how they were focusing on their active recall system so they can recall the information for their nursing test. So it's just interesting to see, what industries focus on recall heavily, and the medical industry heavily focuses on that. Could you talk about that, Dr. Bay? Knowing that you are a medical doctor, could you talk about that?
But I don't like to get into medicine. I was turned off about it when I entered medical school when they asked me what was the number one thing or the major or almost only thing that a doctor really does. They said surgery. Then I got aware of something called uh, Rockefeller medicine and found out the purpose for the medical industry and the level that it's grown to has majorly to do with two things: controlling the population and the wealth of the people that had the oils and products that they could uh, make the money off of. So I don't want to get into that at this point. But
No
again,
worries.
I do a class on that and a training on that, but they need to get in touch with you, and we'll look into it.
No,
I'm
definitely
going to look
appreciate
into
that.
it.
Appreciate that, Dr. Bay, for sure. When it comes to, these subject matters, of course, that shows that there's a wealth of knowledge there. We definitely want to stick to the subject matter of sowing and reaping a day, mentally, physically, and any points that you want to share that that are insights to someone's betterment outside of just contacting Trust Christian. You can reach out Christian at trustchristian.com, that email. But we're just going to say, hey, you know, ladies and gentlemen, what question do you have for Dr. Bay? Feel free to type it into the chat. What question you have for Dr. Bay, and what what is the subjects that you have in mind when it comes to wanting to hear Dr. Bay speak on outside of sowing and reaping, because this is a subject where we get a lot of people reach out to the vault and say there is no such thing as money. And that could be slightly delusional. Dr. Bay, have you heard that argument before that money doesn't exist?
Depending on what they call it money.
Correct. And that's another thing. So, people get a little upset or they get in their thoughts and feelings about the information they hear about, oh, Federal Reserve notes and these fiat currencies. And you hear, the public news saying, oh, well, there's something wrong with fiat currency. We're going to leave this and we're going to go to the cryptocurrency. Or there's other. Dr. Bay, what do you think about the American dollar? Do you think the American dollar is a strong asset?
Well, I know it is in a real way because it is being used. Anything that's being used and being used effectively is real. Now, that does not mean that it is the absolute best way to do it. At one time, they used salt. One time, they used African descendants as slaves as money. And so you could go on to what is the best way that someone's going to come up with. I don't know. Um, one time it was gold, and then they got rid of the gold uh, as a backup, and all of this type of thing. It's there's no one single answer. You need something that can be utilized on every level. Having been in the trade business, and even today, currency is the number one thing traded. Whether you call what one person calls their currency, and what another person calls their currency is another story altogether. No single answer.
Right. And so this goes back to utilizing the systems, not condemning the systems, utilizing the systems that are currently in place for the betterment of your family and yourself. And that's
Absolutely, and not only that. finding a, if you can come up with and make use of a better system, bring it on. That's what people have done over the years.
Hmm. But people definitely got to enroll in a system first of all to learn that they're involved in systems or be aware of systems, because so many people that we've talked to throughout the years, Dr. Bay, they say so many people are programmed and they're not awake. They call it awake or not awake. That's what these terms are floating around in the universe. Um, and so we're looking for the people that want to unite under knowing information, the proper information. When you talk about trusteeship, when you talk about spirituality, when you talk about health, Dr. Bay shared with you all, he has very great in depth knowledge, has traveled, has met quite a few people that have farms and otherwise, met people internationally. So these people are around, Dr. Bay is connected with them. And when we think about what we can continue to go through, it's one of those things, Dr. Bay, if you could highlight the importance of emotional development. How does someone develop their emotions?
So that's a part of the training too. So they need to get in touch with you.
Okay, great.
Uh, there's a there's a whole system developing your emotions.
Okay. But is that separate from developing your thoughts?
It's involved. It's not. It's a system, and a system has more than one aspect to it.
Okay. That's great to know.
It's not one thing. It's a whole bunch of things working together. You know, it's like almost any system. If the one system ain't working right that's in the system, the whole system don't work. In other words, if your battery ain't working in your car, the whole car don't work. The transmission don't work in the car, and so forth and so on. But it works similar to you. If your heart ain't working right, your body ain't working properly. If your lungs ain't working right, and so forth and so, if your thyroids aren't working right, you can just go on and on. It's a system, not one thing.
Right. And that's definitely important for people to grasp, Dr. Bay, is that it is a system. And so enrolling in the knowing system, enrolling in the trustee training system is what it's all about. It's about making sure that you have access to resources, you have access to the knowledge, you have access to getting the job done. See, a lot of people say, oh, I believe that something can work, but they don't know something can work. We're here to tell you, Dr. Bey could tell you that trusteeship is real. He's living it. We're living it. We always bring people to the platform that are living it. Dr. Bey's living it. We could talk to him about it, but he also is deeper in it. So when we say, "Oh, how's private life?" It's not much to talk about. It's giving up the public advertisement. So we definitely appreciate you coming on, Dr. Bey, and just sharing some insights with us today about various different topics, and specifically sowing and reaping. That was something that we really wanted to get to our audience and just really give them an idea that you gotta sow before you can reap. And as long as you can realize you gotta sow before you can reap, you gotta know you gotta give up and surrender to your gifts, surrender to your calling, and reach out and not play around with it. You reach out, you take that step forward. There's no other way around it. It's what Dr. Bey says, having faith. Remember one day asking Dr. Bey, what is faith? Because that is a mystery in the universe for humans right now. They were so stuck on belief for the past 2,000 years. Oh, I'm stuck on belief. Let me believe in this. Let me believe on floating men in clouds. Let me believe. And now we're in the faith system. You're supposed to walk by faith. Talk to us about faith, Dr. Bey. When we're sowing to grow our faith, what is faith?
Faith is the dominant leadership aspect of the family. And I say the family, and this is all of you. You got in a system. And it is tied back to the will to accomplish something and the feeling you can do it. And creating that feeling based on involving in the feeling. You got to realize that belief is a system. Says, I'm going to accept what somebody said and live and act by it. And it really is structured on something that nobody can demonstrate or show. Because if you could demonstrate and show, you wouldn't have to believe, you would know. In other words, like I said before, I may not know somebody can swim, but if somebody can take me to the swimming hole, they can show me somebody can swim. Now I don't have to believe somebody can swim. I know somebody can swim because I've been demonstrating the show. It could be the same about an airplane or anything else. If it's belief, it means nobody's ever demonstrated or shown. They're saying that this is what caused it or this is what's stopping it, but there's no evidence that this is correct.
Okay, so let's get to this faith thing, this knowing thing, or at least the faith thing.
The faith is governing your activities of action and the end results that you anticipate.
Do you think expectation and anticipation are similar?
They're similar, but they're not the exact same thing.
Right. Okay. 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 So is there
Like I
anything?
said, we try to
Go ahead, Dr. Bey.
go ahead. Now we try to simplify things that is really and put them all into one category, and there's almost nothing that way.
And that's why we got to get in
Everything.
a spiritual knowing system, ladies and gentlemen. It's got to be something that you know what you're talking about. So many people say, "Oh, I don't want to
You
believe.
know you
I don't want to believe in anything." Well, Christian at trustchristian.com. That's the email so we can move forward with Trustee Training and Dr. Bey and the other resources that we provide in Trustee Training. So we look forward to hearing from you. Christian at trustchristian.com. Continue, Dr. Bey.
well, I was just saying that you got to realize that the average person simply do not realize they have been programmed to feel, think, and act a certain way. And this programming is a major challenge, like some people call it, uh, like a friend of mine called it being bamboozled. But we base our lives around programming, and most of it is inaccurate and is non-demonstratable because anything that is realistic you can demonstrate. You know, it's just like taking people through a spiritual rebirth, getting people to realize that they can transcend time and distance. They do not have to leave their thoughts totally based on something somebody else said or on this particular time. They can go back and see whether what was said is accurate or not.
They can do a past life regression.
Right.
Okay.
Or they can even be spiritual rebirth where they really remove these blockages that they don't know they have. Don't end up. See, if you don't know that you have something, it affects you. But even worse, you don't know. Even if you know you have it, or don't know you have it. If you don't find out what caused it, you can't solve it. So everything is really tied to what you said about cause and effect. But you have to know what caused it and stop doing what caused it in order to have the desired effect. You cannot stop smoking, or you cannot stop the habit of smoking and the health challenges that it brings without stop smoking. You got to stop doing it in order to get rid of it. Well, don't care what's the challenge. The only way to solve any problem, stop doing what caused it.
Right. Dr. Bey, I think some of the things that you say definitely pierce people's heart and consciousness. Could you talk about the importance of reaching out to Christian at trustchristian.com and unifying with the collective consciousness for people that have the same mindset? When people say, "Oh, I want to get around like-minded people," they're basically saying they want to unify with people that are in tune with a certain level of consciousness, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so that consciousness is a state, and these different consciousness. So talk about sewing with the group and this word leverage in the universe, how that really causes us and affects us when we come together on more of a collective consciousness level, not just by ourselves.
Okay. We got to realize that you have to have like energies in order to multiply. In other words, you cannot multiply. In other words, let's say you put feet and inches. Can you multiply feet times inches? No, you got to change them to the same thing. You got to take them to the same level of awareness. You can't multiply miles times inches. You got to change them either to miles or to inches. And so, to get us to really understand this type of thing, we need to unite and form like consciousness, because most of us don't have the same consciousness. You know how you look at religions, one believes one thing and one believes another thing. And the power is when people are utilizing the same like energies that multiplies the strength involved in them.
Okay. We appreciate you sharing that. When it comes to universe or collective consciousness, could you talk about what we call it? Leverage. Leveraging those consciousnesses, those awarenesses.
Well, that's another subject. They need to get in touch with you.
Okay, great.
From
And that's why you're going to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com, so you can understand that. And that's why we have Dr. Bey, sitting here right here with us right now, is because it's something that, Dr. Bey has really shared. Even when you talk about multiplying, it's important, ladies and gentlemen. So many people get in trusteeship and they feel lost. Oh, I'm by myself. Well, okay, now you have the opportunity to be with someone that's been in it for over 20 years. And Dr. Bey's been in trusteeship for a long, long time. How long have you been in trusteeship, Dr. Bey?
Well, I really would like maybe the clarity on what aspect of trust. There are many, many different things to trust. So,
When did you
there's a
become
living
when did
trust
you,
and a
what was the
charitable
first age you
remaining trust.
became a trustee? What was the first age you became a trustee, doc? Responsible as a fiduciary.
Okay, are you talking about the legal aspects of trust? Or
Both.
are you talking
Both of
about?
them.
I don't have time to go into that. It'd take too long. Tell them to get in touch with you, and that's something you and they want to do. I'll take them through it.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you sharing, Dr. Bey. Definitely appreciate everybody for listening, tuning in live, hearing the replay. If you hear any background noise, excuse us. We just are in major cities, so that's how it goes. Appreciate you for being here, Dr. Bey, and being live on the replay. Anybody listening on the replay. Um, Dr. Bay, we appreciate you. We're 35 minutes in, and we just appreciate you for sharing once again today the law of sowing and reaping and some of the spiritual principles and laws and aspects that we talked about. Those things bring a lot of value to people wanting to be in contact with us and have reached out. So we look forward to seeing everybody that comes out and reaches out, and look forward to hearing from everybody that reaches out through the vault. And definitely look forward to hearing from you. Christian at trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you all. Dr. Bay, did you have anything you wanted to wrap up on? Anything in specific, based off the subject matter of sowing and reaping, and even the energy of the day, which is, the law of the habit, dealing with sowing and reaping, Did you have anything you want to add to that? Even self-programming, people have issues with how, okay, I'm at this point in my life, Dr. Bay, excuse me, I'm just repeating sometimes what we hear, Dr. Bay. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm at this point in my life, but I don't have complete mental control over my life. Do you think that's possible, Dr. Bay?
Well, you got to realize, back to sowing and reaping, that if you don't know, how can you sow to reap the right thing? That's the reason I would suggest they get in touch with you. What they need to know is why they're here on earth and what particular stage of that development are they in. And since almost everybody's are different, they need to know their difference and how they can deal with not just themselves, but others and their differences too. Because many times what you think is your challenge is your best friend. It's aiding you in doing something. I know that I had a couple that came to me once, and uh, really only the husband came, but I ended up explaining to them about their differences and what their differences were doing to strengthen them. And uh, they were blown away with that because they were in the process of separating or getting a divorce and all. And of course, I ran into them a little while later, a year or so, or two, three later. That they said, based on what they were able to gain from how I put it and showed them, they were able to. Now you couldn't find, according to them, you couldn't find two happier people
Hmm.
because I dealt with the cosmetic debt aspect that each one of them owed, and how each one of them was helping the other one pay their cosmetic debt, and that was why. And what was getting on their nerves, they were reaping uh, what they sowed from someone else, and and to get past that and get over that would pay the debt. And so they were saying that you couldn't find two happier people. That every time they started getting on the other's nerve, they started laughing where they used to start not crying and cursing and fighting and all that. They started laughing and said, "Okay, you help me pay that debt now." And so it's important to realize that we don't know. So if we don't know, we're going to feel a certain way that may or may not be accurate.
Okay, that's definitely important to know there, Dr. Bay. Appreciate you for sharing that. And that's why you can feel free to reach out. Christian at trustchristian.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to connecting with people. Feel free to hit the like and the subscribe button. We always appreciate everybody that hits the like and the subscribe button. We definitely have Dr. Bey's been on tour for a while here, and we definitely have some people connecting with Dr. Bey. So feel free to reach out, Christian at trustchristian.com. There's a few different places and cities you can stop and connect with him. Look forward